You didn't disappoint with the outfit today. The hat and glasses are on point as expected.
Thank you. Thank you. Always trying to please, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So
Definitely.
so you're recording music right now. You're in the studio.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much always. That's pretty much what I do now is just
How do
record.
you decide on what to wear in the mornings? Like, how did you come together with this outfit?
I just pick out some stuff, just go in,
Wow.
pick out stuff and just, go with it. You know,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
so I'm kind of used to it. So it's like, it's really not a hard thing to do. Just, whatever's looking crazy for the day is cool.
yeah. It's just like
You know,
anyone else picking out a t-shirt and jeans. Same thing.
right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
pretty good. That's
So
pretty good.
So I want to start. You released a new single a few weeks ago, and I know that it's the JB's tribute, Pastor P.
Right.
Now this
Right.
started with a jam session, right? Like, how did this
Yeah.
track
Well,
get made?
well, actually, I had been thinking of Jabo and Clyde and how people had sampled, you know, their beats, and I got the opportunity to play with them, and I just felt like, they need a little more recognition, you know. I mean, and not only that, they never got paid anything, So, I just want to make people aware of the JBs and of Clyde and Jabo, what they brought to the table, and that's what started the idea. And then I had to find out what drummer could play like Clyde and Jabo. And to my surprise, I had been playing with him all along. Daru Jones, he sounded just like Clyde. He sent me a few tapes, and I was like, wow. So that's where it all started with getting with him, and he came to Cincinnati to play a gig, and the suggestion was going over to King Records, and even though it's not a studio yet, that's what we're working on to restore. Um, we got the keys to King Records, and he just went in there and started playing, started jamming, and it sounded so good. It was like, man, we need to cut this for the record. I had already almost completed the album, but when that vibe hit me, it just reminded me of the sound of back in the day. It was like a live big room, because that's what it is right now, but that's where it started.
Yeah. Do you miss the days of like in the 60s and 70s when well, 70s more because you're not as old as some of the other band
Right,
members,
right.
but it was a lot more stream. It was a lot more was it more of like freestyle back in the 70s, a lot more impromptu? Like what is it like recording now versus,
It
50
it,
years ago?
it was a lot of experimenting. I mean, you didn't have no bar to set. It was like who can reach the highest, without beating each other down. It was all about just what you can give to the musical community, and how much of it can you give. And everybody was just creative at that point because, it was like, you know, we didn't know that there was going to be an end to that. It was like you always reaching, because you never know how far you're going to go. And so everybody was in competition, whether we knew it or not. Everybody was trying to get there, and nobody knew where there was, So it was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
so it was
And
fun.
and there were some chemicals going around, I'm sure too at the
Uh,
time. Uh,
Chemicals.
yeah.
Uh,
That's pretty funny.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's how I thought a nice way of putting it.
You got me. You got me on that one.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
oh
Um,
man.
so I'm not a musician myself. I played trumpet in middle school. Could
Oh
not
yeah.
play any James Brown horn charts, I'm sure, but I love instruments. I love how they're made and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And how did your first space bass, your custom bass,
Right. Right.
like how was that made? What instructions did you give? And what did you think of it when you first saw the finished product?
Oh man.
Because
Let's see.
could you scoot over just a little bit to your right, just a little bit to your right.
Uh-oh. This
Yeah,
way.
there you go. Perfect. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Great, great. I was wondering what was wrong with my,
yeah.
like the side of my head. It's like, what's going on? I thought I was back in the 60s. All right. That's better.
Yeah, it's better. That's great. Amazing.
Okay. Oh shoot. What was the question? I forgot the question.
I was talking about the space bass.
Oh, the space base, yeah. Um, well, actually, that was back in my school days when I was going to school. I would draw space like stick men, and I would put star glasses on them and a star guitar, never knowing that that is one day what is going to be my look and my instrument. So when I got the chance, like by playing with James Brown and really playing with George Clinton and Parliament-Funkadelic, it gave me a chance to kind of experiment and find my own identity. And come to find out that that's what I thought about was the star glasses and the star bass. The star bass was the hardest thing to get done because nobody wanted to touch it because it was like nobody's going to buy them, first of all. And, I'm a nobody, nobody knew who I was. So it was like, then nobody, all the way up and down 48th Street, all of those musical places that was there on 48th Street in New York, I would tell them the idea and nobody wanted to deal with it. So I wound up going to, well, we were in Detroit. That's where we recorded at. And this little community called Warren, Michigan. I was walking up and down the street and I saw this accordion place. And, something said, you need to go in there and check and see if, somebody would like to make that space bass. And I was like, that don't make sense. This is an accordion place, and it was like, go ahead. So there's a little Casper on my shoulder, kind of talking to me and nudging me. So I went in there and the guy that owned the place, he said, no, we don't make instruments here, but I do have a young guitar player in the back room that works on guitars. You might want to talk to him. I went back and talked to him and he got his eyes, like wide open. He was like, he was like, he wasn't having fun, with what he was doing, because it was the same little things every day, I guess. And he was saying, I would love to give it a shot. And, he was like 17, 18 years old. And, I'm like, what, like 20, 21, 22. So it was like we were both fired up. And I gave him a drawing of, my idea. And he said, let me give it a shot. He loved, so he put away all the stuff he was messing with, at the time. He put that away and jumped right on the space base idea. And he said, check back with me in a couple of days and I'll have something, I have something for you. And I checked back with him. And sure enough, he didn't have it finished. It wasn't finished, but he had the star cut out and the neck that I had told him that I wanted. He had all of that put together. And the funny thing about it was Warner Brothers wanted me to shoot the cover of the album, and the space bass wasn't ready. And I was like, the glasses and the space bass got to be on the cover. And, so I didn't have no help. Well, nobody helping me like, well, we can do this. Well, we can wait and we can do that. Nobody was helping me. So I was like, okay, let's box it up and I'll take this. He said, well, I'll spray paint it the color the color you want it. And, I was asking for mirrors on the space bass, and he couldn't do that. So if you look at the Stretching Out album cover, that bass is not finished. Actually, it didn't have strings on it. The tuning pegs wasn't there. But when you look at the album, it looks like it's all there, and the other funny thing about it was when I took it on the airplane, the pilots came out and they wanted to see it, and I was like, wow, this is so trippy. I thought I was tripping. It's like, man, I hadn't taken anything.
Do you remember the first time that you ever played your instrument? Like, what did that feel like? Do you have that memory?
Wow. It's so much in there. I can't even remember the first time I played it, but when I did, I was totally freaked out. Totally freaked out. And I think I had like a little small audience in the room, and everybody was just, because it was one of a kind. And when you saw this bass, you knew it was Bootsy's bass. Nobody else had it. And so that made it so special for me, and that's where it came from. A accordion place that, those accordion things, that instruments, that's where I had it made. And nobody, would ever think that. I wouldn't even believe in it while it was getting done.
Yeah, I would have thought it was like a special expert bass, constructor or whatever.
I wanted it to be that, but they all turned me down.
Yeah.
And so I had to get it made. I had made up my mind. I got to do this. And same thing with the glasses, but it wasn't as difficult as the space bass.
Did you have someone actually like make them homemade, like glue rhinestones to a regular pair of sunglasses, or?
Well, actually, the rhinestones wasn't the first pair. The first pair was, let me see if I brought up. The first pair was like this. It had mirrors. It was mirrors.
Yeah, sure.
And so when I went into this place on Sunset Boulevard, I never forget it. I just met the guy that made them back in the day. He's no longer with us, but I met his son, and it was fun. And this was about 6 months ago, and I never knew his son, but we met on the internet, and so the glasses, they said, the guy told me, he said, I can make the glasses, but I don't know about that mirror stuff. So the mirror for me was when the kids look in my eyes, they would see themselves, and to me, that was a big deal, because it was kind of like I was saying to them without saying that, it ain't really me. It's really you that you're looking at. That's what the mirror for me represented. It's like, don't think I'm so high and mighty that you are not in the picture. And when they looked in the glasses, they only seen themselves. And to me, that was pretty deep.
My mom is a huge Snoop Dogg fan.
Oh yeah.
And my co-host Jordan had sent me a video of you playing with Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about Snoop Dogg and that experience working with him?
Oh man, we've been knowing each other for quite some time. let's see, when we first got together. When we first got together, we just talked and hung out, got loaded, just had a great time. I mean, he came to the house here, and I had him trying on clothes. Like you say, how do I pick out clothes? Well, I had him come in the place where we keep all the stuff and pick out some clothes because I wanted to see what I look like, you know. And I put, he would come in and pick out something, and then he put it on, and I'd be sitting in another room, and then he'd walk in, and it was just so scary. It was scary good because I couldn't believe, you know, that he looked so much like what I looked like. And, I was like, so this is what people are seeing because I never saw myself like that, you know. And it was just so amazing. That was just one time he came out and we spent about a week or two together. And, from then on, it was like, actually I gave him one of the leather suits, and a pair of the space glasses. And I mean, from there on, we were hooked on each other, because he brought the same vibe of his era, the same thing I did in my era.
In the early 90s, when all these hip hop and R&B artists, I remember the song Freak Like Me,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So when
Adina
all that was
Howe.
happening, did you love it? I mean, like, were you like, because there was like a Bootsy resurgence in the early
Right.
90s.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
was that period like for you?
Well, I was still trying to find my way. And when I heard people liked where it was coming from, that made me like them even more. And it was like, people would ask me, do I like them sampling me? And, you know, and I'm like, that's keeping the funk alive. So that was really cool for not only me, but all of the artists, funk artists of my generation. So I thought that was really cool. And I would get a chance to work with the generation that came after us. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah,
And
I think it'd be the most gratifying thing as a musician to see the next generation, you know, take
yeah,
music and do something with it. And yeah, and that, you become sort of this like uncle of the music
yeah,
scene. Yeah, I
yeah.
think
And
that'd be
it and,
gratifying.
and it never, it never dawned on me that, people were hating on the younger generation because, they would take stuff. I mean, it's gonna be like that's kind of the way each generation is. They take something like we were taking something from the generation before us. Like I had a heroes, Jimi Hendrix, Howlin' Wolf, um, Elvis, Little Richard. So, we would take, for instance, like Little Richard, it was like, I want to be able to dress like that and change my clothes and do any kind of dress that I want to dress like. I want to be able to do that. I want my music to be like that as well. Anything that I want to play, I can play and I can feel comfortable in doing it because it's all self-expression. And when the era I came up in, that's what it was really about, expressing yourself. We even had a song, Express Yourself.
Yeah,
So that really was home for us.
right,
Yeah.
right. I have to, since the new single is JB's themed, I got to ask,
Yeah.
how did you meet James Brown, and did he immediately hire you and your brother for the band? How did you become the JBs? How did your band become the JBs?
Well, I think it's kind of a long story. I'm gonna try to cut it
Yeah,
down.
truncate it a little bit. But
Yeah.
actually, you know what? Just like What do you remember about meeting James Brown? What was your impression of him, and what was your interaction like?
I mean, you know, James Brown was on top of the world, and we knew all every song he would record and come out with. We knew it instantly. I mean, it was like we jumped right on it. Practice, practice, practice. That was our whole thing. Was making sure we was as tight as his band, and to work the band like he did. And when I got a chance to actually meet him, that was like phenomenal because they were always in the studio. They would come to Cincinnati at King Records and record. And goody for us, because that's where we hung around. We hung around King Records, hoping and praying that one day, we'll meet the Godfather of Soul. We were meeting the other stars, and James's band at that time was like our big heroes. So like they would come out of the studio and, get some wine from us, some weed, on a break, and so we kind of start melting into each other and get, this was before we even met James Brown, so we met the band first, Bobby Bird, Vicki Anderson, Marva Whitney. We was on the road with Marva Whitney and Hank Ballard, so this was before we got with James Brown. So James Brown knew about us. We just hadn't hooked up yet. So when his band was giving him problems, we were the first ones that he thought of to call. And that's how we got in. Before that, we wasn't allowed in the studio, when he was there. So, and to us, that was a big deal because it was like, we'll show that mouth. We'll show that mouth. We're going to show him how great we are. Because, when you're that young, you're so cocky and,
Prove yourself.
Yeah. So, then that day that we did finally meet him was the day when he needed us so bad because he couldn't, the band walked out on him. And we were in Cincinnati and they were in Columbus, Georgia. And so they were doing the gig, supposed to be doing the gig, and the band wasn't going on with it. So he said, call them Collins boys. And Bobby Bird called us up. We was doing a what do you call a fundraiser because we never raised nothing. we was always trying, was trying to get gas money, wine money, gas and wine was the big deal because if we can, get some gas and if we can have
That's
some
all you
wine,
need.
that's all we needed.
That's all you need.
That's all we needed. Because we were road dogs before it ever came down to traveling like that. We would just travel just to see if we can get in like sit in, and what sitting in is, you go to the club and you have your instrument, you walk up to the bandstand and can I sit in? That was a big deal. It's kind of like when you dancing and you walk up to the guy and say, can I have this dance? Or you walk up to the lady and say, can I have this dance? And whoever she's dancing with, they got to go and you take the dance. So that's what sitting in, that's what it represented. When musicians walked into place, you pretty much knew they were musicians because they would come straight to the stage, and that's what we did. And we would call it, let's take it to the stage. I don't know if you heard that record on Funkadelic, but that's what that meant. Let's take it to the stage. It wasn't about fighting. Let's do it. Let's take it out on the stage, on the stage, and that's what we did. That's how we had fun.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Now, you were only in that band for less than a year, but you cut some
Yeah.
of the biggest songs that people recognize.
Yeah.
Um, was that just a whirlwind? Were you even aware of how big of a deal it was, or were you just like there was so much going on you just couldn't even think about it?
I couldn't even think about, I couldn't mentally digest what was happening at the time. It was so quick. Things were moving so quick. We had just um tried to stop tripping, you know, um, with the sunshine, the LSD. I mean, we was trying real hard, and I hate to blame it on the Godfather, but he was so deep, and it was like, telling us you can't be doing that, and although he was kind of right because it was his show, but it was so difficult because he was always telling us that we didn't have it. We wasn't on the one. In other words, y'all ain't practicing hard enough and y'all don't sound good. So hearing that show after show after show, it forced me to go back to, well, shoot, I don't even care no more. I'm just gonna, you know, do what I want to do. And so I started back taking, whatever I was taking. And some of the cats followed, you know. And so that is what really led to the firing and getting rid of us thing, because you know, the the James Brown thing to me was suit and ties, clean shoes, looking great, looking professional, and all that was good. But the era that was coming in and we was coming out of was the wild thing, peace and love, and what doing, it's your thing, do what you want to do. So all of that was happening while we were playing with James Brown, Jimi Hendrix, and like, I wanted to be free like that, and bands were moving up on stage and singing themselves and soloing, and so it was a new era coming in, and didn't nobody really clock in on that. We was always just moving with what we felt, you know and nobody was telling us like what to do, other than James Brown, because
How is James Brown able to do those splits?
oh man, he was great at it. I mean, he was great. He had been doing them since he was a kid, and he was just able to do it. And some of the nights he would come up, and show us, back in the dressing room, he'd show us his knees. They were like all skin up, and he would be bleeding. you know. But he was I mean, he was the hardest working man in show business, for
Literally.
real. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I cannot take actually nothing from him, because he did what he said he was gonna do, and that was like, that gave me the inspiration to do whatever I felt I wanted to do. And he was always there in the back of my head,
Yeah.
pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. At the time I didn't like it, but I finally realized it was for the better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long of a gap was there between leaving the JBs and joining George Clinton?
I'd say about 3 months,
3 months. Okay.
2, 3 months,
So it
you
wasn't that
know.
long.
No,
So
no, no.
did George know of you and your brother before?
Yeah.
So did you guys already know each other? He called you up and said, I need some people in my band, or how did you end up in
No,
George's band?
no, he didn't. He knew of us because we played with James Brown. Everybody had started recognizing that, Bootsy and his brother were with the James Brown band. So that word kind of got around a lot. So this girl that we met in Detroit, once once we realized that we were fired, and we had started getting used to making money, because that was unheard of. When I was, like playing in the clubs and this, that, it wasn't really for the money, it was for the chicks, you know.
Love the honesty. Love the honesty.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, and then when we got with James, he started paying us. And it was like, what is this all about? I mean, and then I guess we started getting used to it. And like, wow, this is pretty cool. He's able to send mama some money back, and save some money. I mean, we weren't used to that. We just came off the street, and next thing you know, we with James Brown. And getting paid. I thought we had to pay him, you know. So long story short, it's like it was such a blessing to leave James Brown, and we were so hot on fire that George, his band was walking out on him, within that 2 or 3 months. And we just happened to be in Detroit because the lead singer with the Spinners had called about they needed a band and a lead singer. So we had already, once we once we came off of the road with James Brown, we had already put our little band back together. Felipe Wynn was the lead singer, the one that sung with the Spinners. Let's see, Sadie, the song Sadie. That's him. That's him. And yeah. So he was traveling with us, and so we was going to Detroit, met this girl named Malia, and she said, wow, because of the way we dressed and the way we sounded, she said, y'all should meet George Clinton. She said, y'all you sound, the sound, y'all fit right in there. And she said, he's having problems with his band. And, so it was like, yeah, let's meet him. So I got a chance to meet him, and we talked and talked. And my whole thing was, I don't want to become a funkadelic, because it kind of felt like it'd probably be the same thing. Like, we played behind James Brown. We want to be a band, and at that time, bands was breaking out of just playing behind singers. We were definitely not wanting. That's why we turned the Spinners down, is because they wanted us to play behind them, and we was wanting to freak out and have a great time, and so we didn't go for the singing, playing with the Spinners, but they needed a lead singer, and we told Phil he needs to just go ahead with them because we were going with Funkadelic, and that's where that whole split up thing happened, and that's how it all started. He went with the Spinners, we went with Funkadelic, and the rest is history.
The rest is history.
Yeah.
I would love to talk to you about all these stories for hours, but I do want to fast forward a little bit before we let you go to the modern times and the collaborations you did recently. I love the Kali Uchis video After the Storm.
Oh, yeah.
So good.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
Did they you never knew you were going to be on a cereal box at some point. But
well, you know what? We used to joke about post crazios. That was us on the cereal box at the time. So it's like I was kind of, I'm kind of used to certain things that pop up, and that was really cool because a lot of the era that's going on now never seen that, I'd never seen nothing like that, and
like I was not aware of the cereal box thing till you just said it just now, so,
yeah. So but I think it's a cool thing because we get reintroduced to the next generation, So, for me, it's cool. Kali, she came here and recorded the song.
Oh, so
So
Collar recorded the song in your studio?
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Well,
awesome.
they did the rhythm track in Canada,
Mm.
but she did her parts. She came and stayed a couple of weeks. We went out, went to the movies. I mean, we just had a blast. And she recorded a bunch of songs. We got probably about a whole album that she did, that's wasn't even released. So I
So
don't know if I should
there's
even
like
say that.
there's unreleased Kali Uchis songs that
Yeah,
yeah. Wow.
yeah,
That's an
yeah,
interesting little nugget. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 So as the beat goes on, right?
Yeah. Yeah. What do you what and this is I apologize, this is such like a music journalist question, but
Yeah.
you just had your 73rd birthday. Happy birthday, by the way.
Oh,
Uh
thank you. Thank you.
what keep you're a studio rat, you're in there all the time, you're working with younger artists. What keeps you going? Because you could just be sitting watching TV, watching movies, all that kind of thing, but you're still working hard. What keeps you going?
I think it's what you just said. It's the younger generation with that new energy. I see myself, that's what they're doing is what I used to do all the time. And seeing that re rejuvenates me, seeing that and how serious they are, you know, um, and how talented, a lot of them are, they're not just, um, well, everybody's not just, doing like a little beat and then rapping over it. There are real musicians that's still playing.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh yeah, the
yeah,
creativity of
yes,
like I think about To Pimp a Butterfly, the Kendrick
yeah,
album,
yeah,
like that was so
yeah,
dense and complex and interesting.
yeah.
And I think
Wh-
that the bar has been raised in hip hop on what is expected. You can't just do like the early 2000s when I was growing up. It was just like throw a beat,
A
throw a
beat,
sample, and yeah.
yeah,
And now it's
yeah.
just so much more.
Yeah, the bar has definitely been raised. And I think, that's inspiring. I mean, because at some point it's like, man, is it going to be uh, great? Is the kids going to just throw the instruments away? What's going to happen with live music? And it's all coming back around,
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
and it's a good feeling. It's a good vibe. At first, like I said, it was kind of a downer because it looked like everything was stagnant, you know, but now it feels like, the youngsters are getting into it. They're getting deep, and when they get deep, that makes me get deep, So I
Yeah,
want to I want to keep up with them.
absolutely. And speaking of youngsters, I have to ask, what do you think of Thundercat?
And the
Mhm,
cat is incredible.
mm,
He is who he said he is.
mm.
He's a Thundercat, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you
And,
so much
and
for
he
talking
and
to
he
us. Go ahead. Yeah.
and he brings so much to the table that young bass players, young musicians, they all are inspired by that next bar stuff. You
Yeah.
know, um,
And
yeah,
I really love that people like Thundercat are involved in hip hop because
yeah,
it's almost like going back to the 50s and 60s when you have these virtuosos come in to do a saxophone solo
right, right,
or whatever. Yeah. So
yeah,
I
yeah,
I love that virtuosity where that's valued.
yes,
Now. Yeah.
yes, yeah. It's a beautiful thing, man. It gives us all like musical hope. You know, at some point, it was like you know doom and gloom for a musician. And now that bar is being raised because musicians are actually participating again, really participating,
Yeah.
and having something to show for it. Not just, doing things and, just playing, but lifting the bar and making you have to go to the basement to rehearse and practice, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Bootsy. We appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you
Let's
so
get back
much.
to the studio and make
All
some.
right. Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right.
Thank
See
you
later,
very
Bootsy.
much. All right. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. All right. That was really cool. I love those shows that we do where we get to like talk music history,
Mhm.
We're like, I feel like you and I always say we're like half a generation apart instead of like a full generation apart. When you were younger, were you aware of Bootsy Collins? Did you recognize the glasses and all that kind of stuff? Like,
Definitely, yeah, definitely aware, and especially when he started to play with artists like Snoop Dogg and the generation after. But yeah, we see a lot of that, like with Travis Barker coming in and like almost like reintroducing kind of punk rock from his era to people like Machine Gun Kelly or
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
And that's one thing I think is great is instead of impersonating a retro sound, actually collaborate with someone who's responsible for that retro sound.
Yeah.
And so you can get something real. Yeah. Okay. All right. Enough of us talking. We love you guys. That'll be it for us. I can't tell you who our next show is going to be because I don't know at the moment. But as always, you go to popdust.com for latest and pop culture and music news. Follow me on Instagram at Jordan Edwards Studio and follow Demi at Demi_Ramos. Demi just froze, but she's still here. And go and see all of our archived episodes, audio and visual, at jordananddemi.tv. Until next time, we'll see you later.